All right, welcome back and thank you for staying with us. If you're just joining us, you're watching Daybreak on Trust TV. It's now time for the newspaper review, and we'll begin with Daily Trust newspaper. We'll take the front page, the stories on the front page of this Daily Trust newspaper for today. And we have the lead story here that says presidential poll worst in our history, says Atiku and Obi. Writers here say candidates head to court, call for calm. Don't mislead Nigerians, says APC. US urges INEC to address Beaver's concerns before governorship poll. And details of that story can be found on page 6. We have, this is a pictorial here. Buhari commissions 32 megawatt NNPC Maiduguri power plant. And I'm sure you just saw the story on Trust TV. Details can be found on page 23, by the way. Moving on, at the top of the page, Dang Ama of Dutse, wife, 2 children killed in auto crash. ECOWAS, AU reaffirm commitment to supporting Nigeria achieve growth. We also have IREV, Labour Party, PDP kick as INEC uploads 154,210 polling units results. Now, on the footnotes there, we have identities of 37 herders killed in Nasarawa airstrike unveiled. More stories, man jailed 14 years for raping 14-year-old daughter. And finally, NLC backs Nigeria Air, rejects airport concession. These are some of the stories on Daily Trust newspaper.
And we move on to the Punch newspaper this morning. Atiku Obi refused to concede defeat, begin legal battle. Identify Tinubu Atiku will recover. I defeated Tinubu Atiku. I will recover mandate in court, says Obi. PDP LP presidential candidate lost. We will meet in court. APC PCC. Moving on to other stories. Bank customers borrow 947 billion amidst cash crunch. You'll find the details of that story on page 19. Yaka said differs as Ezife faults Tinubu's emergence. And Fayose dumps PDP, says IU misleading Atiku. To the final story there on the front page, autopsy confirms Christlan's pupil electrocuted. Lagos mother. And these are the major stories on the front page of the Punch newspaper.
All right, with that, we'll move on to Guardian newspaper, and we have the lead story here that says Atiku Obi insists they won, set for legal fireworks. We have writers here that says Atiku says election a rape of democracy that must be challenged by all. Obi says it's not the end but the beginning of a new Nigeria. APC says we will meet Atiku and Obi in court. SDP says we won't challenge Tinubu's victory. Tinubu moves to Defense House, receives presidential briefing. It's a pity. PDP, Labour Party, taking Tinubu's victory badly, says Adamu. UK, US congratulate Tinubu, wants electoral irregularities addressed. And just below that particular story, there's one that says next government and the turbulent economic takeoff. And if you want to read the big story, you can find it on page 6, 7 and 22 of the Guardian newspaper. Now the footnotes there, we have fears as hoodlums heighten criminal activities along Toyota Airport Link Bridge. At the top of the page there, Gubo poll, INEC's opportunity to redeem a battered image, says CSO. Ohaneze, PFN pledged support for Sanwo-Olu's re-election. Details can be found on page 27. Over 1.5 billion persons live with hearing problems globally, WHO confirms. And finally, your flouting of rules threatening Nigeria's corporate existence, Gumi flays INEC. You can find more on that story on page 30. These are some of the stories on the Guardian newspaper.
Moving on to the Nigerian News Direct. INEC declaration, Tinubu Atiku will be in war of words over victory claim. Quietly relocate to Dubai, Tinubu tells Atiku. Says Obi didn't fulfill 25% requirement in 2/3 of states. I will prove I won. Obi, INEC failed. Election, a rape of democracy. Atiku. To other story. So the story from the News Direct, 1.9 million Nigeria credited with 5,000 monthly, according to FG. Lagos decide Ohaneze Ndibo pledges support for Sanwo-Olu re-election. Governorship polls, non-indigens in Ogun declare support for Abiodun's re-election. And to the last story there, what autopsy revealed about my daughter's death. Mother of slain 12-year-old Chrisland student discloses. These are the major stories from the Nigerian News Direct.
All right, moving on to Blueprint newspaper. The lead story here says, aftermath of presidential polls, Atiku Obi Tinubu shift battle to court. It seems every paper today is actually taking the same story. And we have writers that says, I have proof my mandate was stolen, says Obi. Election grossly flawed. Obi took PDP votes in South, South, Southeast, but can't be president, says Atiku. I'm ready to meet you in court. President-elect tells challengers, says Nigerians rejected ethnic religious bigots through their votes. And you can find more on that story on page 6. On the top of the page there, we have March 11. Address issues raised during February 25 polls. Lowen tells INEC. Urges support for Binani, Omo Agege, Folarin, Jika, Bocha, and Ono. Now we also have more stories. Algeria, Morocco rivalry slows 23 billion euros Nigeria, Morocco gas project. You can find details of that on page 23 and more on the footnotes there. Cash shortages may lead to business decline in first, second and third quarter. In first quarter 2023, says survey. 1,940,004 Nigerians receive 5,000 naira cash gifts monthly, says federal government. And police sergeant shoots mistress self dead in Ilorin school. And these are some of the stories on Blueprint newspaper.
Moving on to This Day newspaper. Starting with the story on the top of the name marks, we have Nigeria's election badly flawed. INEC failed, says Financial Times in editorial. With the writer there, advises court should take hard look at Tinubu's victory if challenged. President-elect Tinubu, I would run a fair, inclusive government. To other story, Obi weeps, says he won election, will prove it. Atiku poll worst since 1999, I would challenge it. And to other stories, 6 states ask Supreme Court to declare INEC pronouncement of Tinubu as president-elect null and void and of no effect for failure to transmit presidential election result electronically as required by the Electoral Act, Commission's regulations and guidelines. Claim FG has powers to compel INEC as agency of government. And you'll find pictures there of the separate press briefing by the Tarakin Adamawa Atiku Abubakar, the candidate of the PDP, and Peter Gregory Obi of the Labour Party there on the front page. Ohaneze in Lagos, Yoruba Council, Christians back Sanwo-Olu for second term. These are the major stories on the front page of This Day newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at the Nation newspaper. The lead story here says, President-elect's mandate is pan-Nigerian, says Adamu. Party chair defends polls integrity. US-UK hail Tinubu's victory, and you can find the big story on page 4. We also have at the top of the page there, power supply and NPCL ministry to collaborate, says, okay, you can find that story on page 25. Supreme Court judgment today in Naira. Supreme Court's judgment today in Naira redesign suit. We also have APC's reconciliation panel to meet Atiku, Obi, and Kwankwaso. Now, below the lead story there, we have Obi can't be president, says Atiku. And I think these are some of the stories that you can actually find on the Nation newspaper.
And moving on to Nature News, one that looks at the environment. Flooding. NEMA asks riverine residents to vacate flood-prone areas. To other stories there on the front page, MBS alert Nigerians on hike in food prices. You'll find pictures there of the impact of 2022 flood on communities in Nigeria. Nigeria's oil rebound raises OPEC output in February, according to a report. Nigeria would save 2.47 billion from eliminating fluorescent lighting, according to SLAP. Shell to implement UNEP reports on Ogoniland. There's some cherry news here. FIFA criticized for battling appointments of supermodel to a fan ambassador role. ECOWAS Bank launches ESG financing framework. And to the last story there, World Wildlife Day. UNDP calls for partnership to meet GBF 2030 target. These are the major stories from Nature News newspaper.
All right, with that, we will have an analysis of the papers right about now. And joining us in the studio to review the analysis is Nuruddin Abdullah. He is the editor, 21st Century Chronicles. Good morning and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Dashi.
As usual, it's glad to have you.
Thank you.
All right, so let's start with the Daily Trust newspaper. And Daily Trust newspaper today, we'll start with the lead story. And you can actually find this on almost every other dailies this morning, talking about the presidential polls. Daily Trust, says, or the headline says, it's worse in our history. And this is attributed to Atiku and Obi. And on one hand, we have Atiku blaming Obi for dividing PDP's votes. That's the Labour Party for dividing the vote, and then Labour Party saying they're heading to court to fight for what they actually won. Share your thoughts.
I think, yes, what happened yesterday is a good development for democracy. Why am I saying this? Because the two major challengers of the president-elect have decided now to go to court. After the declaration of APC's Tinubu as president-elect, there were tension, all manner of fake news, some letters calling for street protest, mass action, picketing of INEC offices across the country. So, the tension was high at that time. But what Mr. Peter Obi did yesterday, it calmed the frayed nerves. I believe that, he said that the election is worst in Nigerian political history. Okay. It's left for him to prove it before the tribunal. Same thing with Atiku Abubakar. And the other way is, Obi's votes carve out, like the real estate people saying, of the PDP. So almost with no exception. It is the south-south, southeast, and some parts of the middle belt. That's where he won. And these are the traditional constituency of the PDP. You understand? So maybe with the Concourse, Kano, PDP has never won in Kano, Maybe if Concourse, we are in the PDP, We're talking about almost 13 million votes. 14 against the APC's 8.704, right? So it may be now they seem to be united in defeat. This is what they should have done long ago. You understand? In 2014, the CPC, ACN, Buhari CPC, Tinubu's ACN, some faction of ABGA led by Okorocha, then the ANPP, they formed a coalition and defeated the PDP. In Africa and some developing democracies, you need a coalition to defeat a ruling party. But unfortunately, they did not do that. So this is expected. It was expected, They tried hard, but, if, for instance, Obi at least and Atiku were one, it would have been a different ball game. But what they're saying that the inability of INEC to upload the results from
Issues
the
with
polling
IREV and
unit
Beavers as well.
maybe they have to convince the judges that yeah, this actually how the inability of INEC to upload the result from the polling unit affected their chances. You know, it's a mathematical thing. They have to prove beyond reasonable doubt. And maybe after the tribunal, they have to go to the apex court.
Just help our viewers understand what we're likely to see in the coming days. As somebody who had followed a similar case with Atiku in 2019 and say for 2015 where the challenger considered defeat. You know, even with President Buhari, he had followed his cases up to the Supreme Court when he lost previous election. In this case, both the third person and the second are challenging. Are they going to have a joint challenge, or we are looking at a separate challenge? Because if you talk about a joint challenge, how would they be proving their case when the third is saying I'm the first, and the first is saying, and the second is saying I'm the first? Can you help us unravel that mystery?
Yeah, I think this is not the first time that this thing is happening. Only that, like even 2019, the other person apart from Atiku was a lower level political party. But this is not the first time. It is not, if you look at it, even when Buhari was going to court in 2003, 2007, 2011, you know, he wasn't the only one. There are other parties, but the attention,
that's sweet story.
Because he came second. So I think that is, there is nothing out of the ordinary that we're going to see. But for the opposition, you know, and it simply means that this thing is showing them that they should put their houses in order. You understand? And election, look at it. There was no way Buhari under CPC should have defeated Jonathan in 2015. The same thing with Tinubu's ACN, or even the ANPP, or even a faction of ABGA, the Labour Party. But you know, they coalesced and came together. With even a faction of the PDP. 5 governors, plus a former Senate president and a former vice president. You understand?
There was also that faction available in this election, except that nobody...
Yeah, you understand. You understand. So that is it. And but the G5, something, you see what happened. They were not in control. Minus Wike, who managed. Because if you look at the figures from Rivers, it was really a painstaking...
And that's an interesting one, you know, talking about Rivers. Even the APC is challenging his own victory in Rivers. They are saying, although they won the election, but they think that the figures is likely to throw them in more trouble.
So you understand, it was a painstaking effort, you know, with all manner of hues and cries. The Labour Party saying that the Labour-dominated suburbs and neighborhoods, you know, where the election material were destroyed, you know, and whatever. And you know, it was one of those states that were delayed. So overall, there is something to learn here. If they had come together, it should have been declared winner by now, and they should know how to shed light. The APC did. APC is a combination of New PDP, ACN, CPC, ANPP, and a faction of... You understand? So,
well, what do you think about, you know, the figures? I'm talking about the PDP and the Labour Party, you know, the figures, the fact that, you know, PDP has been in the game for a really, really long time, and Labour Party, you know, there's this, you know, close marking that Labour Party actually gave them when it came to the figures. What are your thoughts about it? What does this say?
Labour Party is PDP, nothing else. Look at the 2019 figures. Atiku won the entire Southeast, South, some middle belt states, and some parts of the North. You understand? Obi was his running mate in 2019, but Obi now has what they call, he graduated. He jumped into Labour Party and contested, you understand? Using all manner of political exigencies. Ethnicity is one. Some are even saying there are some religious factors. So he traditionally carved out those areas from Atiku. Southeast, you see what happened? Even south. So what happened? Atiku managed to just go away with Bayelsa and Akwa Ibom. You understand? Then the middle belt state, you see what happened in Plateau? Nasarawa, APC narrowly won Benue and what have you. So it was just, he thought that maybe he could win. But if you look at the political history from 1999 up to 2019, you'll know that it will hard sell because there are certain factors. Those factors that he relied on, cannot deliver victory to him. Look at even Tinubu, for instance. He is the guy with the widespread votes. Atiku majorly won in the north. You understand? He won by south. He didn't win a single state from the southeast. He managed to go with Ocean in the southwest. He lost Plateau. He lost Nasarawa. He lost Benue. He lost Niger. He lost Kwara. He almost minus Borno. He almost took away the northeast. And they shared the northwest. So he has some little, if you see, a moderate spread compared to the Labour Party. What it simply means is this: if they were one, we'll be talking about totally, the one that will be crying will be the ruling party now.
Absolutely.
But they didn't do their homework properly. They were so egocentric. They believed that, yes, I can do it. And they have to challenge it in, very difficult to overturn presidential victory in courts.
All right. Moving away slightly from the issues of the election to the one of leadership, the Guardian is saying that next government and the turbulence of economic takeoff. There it is citing issues around the economy, banditry, oil theft as depicted by those pictures. Reality is upon the winner. We're here today. He'll be ushered into the defense house, which gives him a pre-presidential kind of privileges and treatment. He'll be getting security briefs and all. What do you think should be the priority of this new president? Because regardless of who, he's declared winner, regardless of the outcome of the Supreme Court's judgment, there is an economy to run. There is a reality that befalls us. There is still fresh scarcity around everywhere in Nigeria. Life is not exactly very, very easy. What would you think he should spend the coming days doing with an eye to hit the ground running?
I think everything revolves around the economy. Purchasing power, inflation, and now coupled with cash crunch. That is muzzling small businesses and what have you. Yeah, nobody is doubting his economic credentials, bearing in mind his antecedents in Lagos, you understand, and his ability to assemble a team that is equal to the task at hand. But more importantly, one thing that the first evil that you have to deal with is the evil of for subsidy, which is guzzling over 4 trillion.
6 actually.
6 trillion. You understand? And look at the fact figures. Keeps on dwindling. It keeps on dwindling. And I think by June, the Buhari's administration has postponed the doomsday to is it April or June? So it's the first thing you have to. So since he's just coming now, he has to take the gauntlet by removing subsidy, by saving 6 trillion, and channel it to other productive sectors.
How do you think Nigerians will actually take that? Because,
this is the right time to do it. Because if not, where is the money to do all the things he promised? almost all our multinational, bilateral, multilateral donors and agencies are complaining about this humongous amount, the 6 trillion for the subsidy. So it's a reality. It's the first thing that he has to face. Politics aside, understand? Then the issue of banditry. Yeah, it has been scaled down drastically, particularly from the northwest angle. The operation Will Shield of the Defense Headquarters actually is working, if you look at that one. But you know, he has to up the ante. The third issue, it has to do with, okay, if you look at the votes, the obedience, the articulated, the Batians or the Batified, there needs to be some form of unity, reassurance. Yes, the vice president, the president-elect has lost the southeast, not a single state. I don't think if he managed to even get 25%, because if you look at the figures from Ebonyi, from Anambra, it's about 500,000 to less than 50,000, and so on and so forth. So we hope he is not going to repeat what President Buhari did. You remember the Amonpo interview? That can't give 5% exactly. You understand that? So there is that unity. But the most important thing now is the economy, because the reality now on ground.
All right, let's quickly take a look at the City and Crime page on Daily Trust newspaper, and there are lots of weird stories here. You have a story of a man jailed 3 years for stealing foodstuff. You also have Abuja trader charged with hypnotism and theft. We have a story of a police arraigning a man caught with stolen cap. And then we have the story of a woman and a kid found dead inside a house in Kano. We have 11 men caught with 10 human skulls, intestines in Ibadan. The story of a policeman who shoots his lover to death in Ilorin and also kills himself. And then finally, something we've actually talked about, recently, the autopsy has finally revealed that the Chrisland student was electrocuted. So these are the stories on City and Crime. So feel free to comment on any of them.
Maybe to start with the last one you mentioned, the Chrislam case. It's very unfortunate. That has been the trajectory of most of these mega schools. You remember the case in Abuja? There's a private school along Lube. That Benue girl she has been sexually molested for a very long time. I think that despite the activism and advocacy, the case is that these schools are owned by the big people,
elites,
patronized by the same big people. So when situations like this happen, they try as much as they could, using all manner of influence or what Nigerians to kill the case. I remember that of
the one
Abuja.
In Abuja. And this is the second time such is actually happening in Chrisland.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. And unfortunately, what I call it, parents of students in that school, are not taking much attention, because it can be anybody's child. You don't know. Yeah, that woman is a victim now. You don't know who is next. You remember that of Kano? It's a Islamic-based prominent school. That issue of sodomy and what have you. The matter just ended that way. You remember in Cross River, it's a prominent church, a school owned by a church. The government took over the case, and the matter died a natural death. So it's a trajectory. And I think parents in particular, apart from sending your kids to all these high-flying schools, you have to look at the physiology and anatomy of the owners, the management. You understand? Else, things like this will keep on happening. They keep randy teachers, very terrible management, that when this thing happens, instead of punishing the students, it's even Lagos. And Lagos don't joke with issue of sexual abuses. They have special courts and what have you. If to your other school, the government will just take over. And the matter done. So we saw it in Kano, we saw it in Ayade's Cross River, and even Abuja here. That been regular, that's it.
Premier Academy.
So, Premier Academy and what have you. And that policeman, very terrible. Maybe it's high time to be subjecting our security agencies to mental, routine mental checkup. You remember the DSS lady that jumped into the lagoon because of having she was dumped by an alleged lover? But this one, he couldn't even take it. He gunned down the lover and
he killed himself as well.
Very unfortunate.
The issues of the heart are very difficult.
No, but it's a mental, like I said during the idiot code is now free. Maybe even frolicking with other. So why will he?
So unfortunate.
You understand? It's not worth it, actually.
But it's important. General Buba Maro had called for a drug test, a mental test for public office holders, inclusive of
politicians,
security agents,
which is the way to go, because some of these actions cannot be described from the point of view of a sane person. But that's the much time will allow us take from the editor, 21st Century Chronicle, Nuruddin Abdullah. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.